Very good morning to one and all. Uh, this is Samantakamani Kuchibatla, Associate Professor, Department of UPE from ACE Engineering College. So today I would like to explain a topic DC generators from the subject electrical machines 1. In this electrical machines 1, the syllabus is divided into different units like unit 1 consisting of DC generators. In the DC generators, we are going to explain or learn what is the principle of operation of DC generators. Before that, construction of DC generators, what are the different parts of the DC generators and materials used for that one, and then what are the operating characteristics of a DC generator, and what is the EMF equation of a DC generator we are going to derive in that one. And finally, we are going to learn about what are the different losses that are present in the DC generator, and then we are going to calculate the efficiency of the generator. And the similar category will also, the concepts will be there in DC motors, which comes under unit 2. And the unit 3, the testing of DC machines we are going to do here, like brake test will be there, and Swimmer's test will be there, other tests will be there in this unit 3. And similarly, unit 4, in the single phase transformers, we are going to learn about what is the construction of the single phase transformer, and what is the principle of operation of single phase transformer, and different loading conditions we are going to learn in this single phase transformers. And coming to the unit 5, testing of transformers and the polyphase transformers. As we already studied single phase transformers in the unit 4, in this polyphase transformer will also be considered. But before going to that one, we are going to learn what are the different like OC test and SC test and Sampanna's test, and different tests will be conducted on the given single phase transformer. And then we are going to learn what is the purpose of the polyphase transformer. Especially we are going to learn a 3-phase transformer in that. Right. So, coming to the suggested textbook for this one is Electrical Machinery by Kingsley, and Performance and Design of DC Machines by Hancock. These are the textbooks will be referred. And coming to the first unit, what are the different topics that will be covered in this DC generators? We will see first. As I mentioned earlier, this is the principle of operation, and constructional features will be covered, and what is the main function of commutator, and importance of the armature windings, and different types of armature windings like lap winding and wave winding. And in this also simplex and multiplex windings are also be there, that we are going to learn in detail. And what are the use of laminated armature. So in this armature is being getting laminated, and what is the need of that lamination also we are going to learn. And then EMF equation of a DC generator we are going to derive, and then armature reaction, what is the concept of the armature reaction, and finally the cross magnetizing and demagnetizing ampere turns for pole compensating winding we are going to learn. Next, commutation, the principle of operation of what do you mean by commutation, and reactance voltage, and what are the methods of improving this commutation, because the commutation is a causes some losses, and sometimes it causes sparking at the commutation. So what happens because of this one, there is a damage to the entire generator. So in order to overcome that one bad effect, we are going to improve that commutation, like methods of improving commutation is also there. And coming to the methods of excitation, we have different types of excitations like separately excited generator and self-excited generators, and how the voltage will be built up in this one, and what is the importance of the critical field resistance and the critical speed, and finally what are the causes for failure of self-excitation, and what remedial features has to be taken to overcome this one, and what are the different load characteristics of different types of generators we are going to discuss in this one. Now, in this, first we'll start with the types of machines. So, based on the type of the supply available, there are basically two supplies that are available, that is direct current and alternating current supplies. So, based on the type of the supply used, the electrical machines are classified into two categories. The first one is the AC machine, second one is DC machine. Now, presently we are dealing with the DC machines. Now, coming to the next one, a general term, machine is a general term which will be used for generators and as well as for motors. But In this generator, what is a generator? So, it's known to you like a machine which converts mechanical energy into electrical energy is coined as generator. And a machine which converts electrical energy into mechanical energy is called motor with the help of mechanical coupling. Like first, basically we have learned what is the difference between type of the machines like AC machine or DC machine, and it basically coming from type of the supply used. And now, today I would like to explain here what is the principle of generator, and then first we'll see in detail about the single loop generator, and then we'll go to the practical generator principle. Now, here I would like to mention you, show the DC generator different parts. Simply, I am introducing the terminology to you, and later in detail we will see. This is the rotatory part, which is called the shaft here, and the outside part is called the yoke or frame, and these are poles or pole shoe. Here pole is there and pole shoe is there, and this is the field winding. Yellow color is the field winding, and this is the armature. This is the armature, and these are the bearings, and this is the brusher, and this is the commutator, which is yellow colored segments were there, and this is the commutator. Right now, an electrical generator is a machine which converts mechanical energy into electrical energy, as we have just seen earlier. Now, the energy conversion is based on the principle of production of dynamically induced EMF. How actually the EMF is generated in the DC generator? So, whenever a conductor cuts a magnetic flux, dynamically induced EMF is produced in it according to the Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So, this DC generator is operating on the principle of Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So, what is actually happening here? A conductor cut by the magnetic flux, then EMF is being induced in the conductor. So this EMF causes a current to flow in the conductor circuit. It is when it is closed. So now for this, what we understand, we require two essential parts of an electrical generator. That is, the first one is a magnetic field, and the second one is a conductor. So, and in addition to these two, there should be some relative motion between these two. So, in this DC generator, what we are studying, we are considering, basically speaking, either magnetic field can be rotated or the conductor may be rotated. But there must be a relative uh, speed between these two. So, but here in the generator, we are considering magnetic field is kept constant or stationary, and a conductor we are allowing to rotate within the magnetic field influence. So we are considering. So what are the essential parts of an electrical generator? We need to. One is a magnetic field, and the second one is a conductor. And this conductor is moving within the influence of the magnetic field. So this can be still very clearly understood with the help of the single loop generator. Let me explain first this diagram. I am just considering for the understanding purpose two poles. A pair of poles we need to consider, right? So north pole and the south pole, and here also north pole, south pole. This I mentioned here case 1 and I mentioned here case 2. Right. So here under now I am considering one turn are also called as a loop. Loop and turn, 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 both are one and the same. So here I am considering a turn which is having two conductors. So here AB is one conductor and CD is one more conductor. So how these are connected to the here slip rings. These F and E and F are called slip rings. And in practical we call this as a commutator. Right. So this A is connected to F and D is connected to E. And if you observe, there is a brush arrangement connected to this one through the load. A resistance is here. This is the construction of a simple loop generator. So here a single turn rectangular copper coil, as I mentioned you, ABCD rotating on its own axis in the magnetic field provided by the electromagnets. These two are electromagnets. The two ends of the coil are joined by the two slip rings X and Y. Slip rings here, as I mentioned here, right? So their function is to collect the current induced in the coil and convey it to the external load resistance. Now, so suppose if we take the one rotation here, it will have two conditions: north to south pole rotation half and again south to north one more half. So that is where we are considering case 1 and case 2. Right. Let me explain clear what happens exactly when this turn rotates in the influence of the magnetic field. It has been explained with the direction of the magnetic flux is the arrow direction shown from north pole and to reaching to south pole. And now I am considering the position of the conductor starting from 0 to 360 degrees, means coming to the same position here, which is called as one revolution. During this revolution of conductor position from 0 to 360 degrees, what happens? So the flux that are cutting the conductor but at different positions, right? So with this one, as the rate of change of flux linking will be there, and EMF is induced in the conductor. So that can be very clearly explained here. At the position 1, the flux that are linking with the EMF that is induced in the conductor will be 0, and by the position 3, that is 90 degrees, if you want to tell in terms of degrees, it will be maximum positive. Similarly, it will be 0 at the condition or position 5 here, which will give you a positive half cycle. Coming to the other half rotation of this turn, it will give you the negative half cycle. So completely, it will give you one positive half cycle, one negative half cycle. Together, it will make you one cycle of 360 degrees. Nothing but one revolution. Right. So, this what I'm talking about is the nature of the EMF induced in the conductor. So, what is the nature of the EMF induced in the conductor of a DC generator? It is an alternating nature. But what we mentioned, it is a DC generator. Then we'll move on to the next one, how this will be converted into a DC outside. Right. So this is what I mentioned earlier. EMF is induced in the coil, which is proportional to E equal to N d∅ by dt. We are considering N is 1 because we are considering only one turn here. And for at different places, what we are considering locations, how the coil sets A, B, and C, D are changing, and EMF induced in the coil, I explained very clearly. Now, it is clearly understood that even in the armature of a DC generator, the induced voltage is alternating, but by some external means it is made unidirectional. By some external means it is a slip rings or commutator. If we have only two, it is called slip rings, and if we are having a practical generator, it will have a commutator, right? See how this is being changed. So here the turn, as the turn is rotating, is the turn segment, the turn ends are connected to the segments here. So this is segment A and segment B. You see in the next diagram, it is segment B and segment A. So continuously the positive is always, positive half cycle is collected by brush 1 and negative half cycle is always collected by brush 2. So if you observe the current flow in the external resistance or load, it is always in one direction. That is why we are getting always the waveform will be unidirectional. Like Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, as I mentioned you earlier, this is given by E equal to Z into d∅ by dt, and maximum voltage induced in the conductor is along the axis when the lines of force and axis of conductor and direction of motion are perpendicular to each other. Now, we'll discuss about Fleming's right hand rule. This is very, very important to find out the direction of a current. So, this Fleming's right hand rule is also called as a generator rule. This is called as generator rule because in order to find out the direction of current, we can make use of this one. Let me explain the Fleming's right hand rule with the help of this diagram. So, take your right hand, three fingers named thumb finger, forefinger and middle finger, and we keep these three in perpendicular direction. All these three are perpendicular to each other. So if I consider this thumb is a direction of force, nothing but a movement of the conductor, then, and here forefinger shows the direction of the magnetic field. That is the case, the current that is induced in the conductor is given by the direction of your middle finger. So with this you can understand what is the direction of the current induced in the conductors of the DC generator. Right. Now, till now we discussed about a simple loop DC generator. Now we are going to the actual or practical DC generator, how it will operate. Right. This diagram shows the cross-sectional diagram of a DC generator, practical generator, which is having 4 poles here. Again, let me introduce the different parts of this DC generator. These are shown is a yoke, and these are called poles. How many poles are there? 1, 2, 3, and 4 poles are there. And over the pole, these are electromagnetic poles. We require a electrical winding or field winding. So this is called a field winding. If you observe this one, all these are connected in series and it is brought to the outside to connect, give a supply here through the terminal box here. And the inner part, if you observe, this is the armature. And the entire armature will have number of slots, and in the slots we will have armature conductors. These are armature conductors made with dot here. And the innermost one, if you observe this one made with the segments, it is called a commutator. And over, if you observe the black colored one, are nothing but your brushes. And the innermost one is nothing but the shaft, which is a rotating part. As I mentioned earlier, 2 parts that are required mainly. One is a shaft and another one is a rotating part like armature, and the second one is a field which is a stationary. So in order to give rotation for the armature winding, which is based on the armature core, this arrangement entirely placed on the shaft. So basically shaft is a rotating part. Next. So this still will give you the cross-sectional view of the DC generator we discussed earlier. Now individually these are the parts of the DC generator. This is a commutator end frame. This is a field frame, and this is a armature and brush and brush holder, pole shoes, screws. So we'll see in detail what are the different parts of the DC machine here. So there are basically the parts of the DC machine are classified into 2 categories. One is the stationary part and the rotating part. Under the stationary part, we'll start with the yoke, which is nothing but a body of the entire DC machine. And the poles will be there, pole shoes are there, and field winding is also a stationary part, and the end plates will be there, and bearings will be there, and brush rocker, brush holder, brushes, and terminal box. All these will come under stationary parts of the DC machine. And coming to the next one, rotating parts. The shaft, armature core, conductors of the armature winding, commutator, cooling fan, all these will come under rotating parts. Now I introduced what are the different parts that exist in the DC machine or generator. So here, now we are going to see what is the function of each and every part of this DC generator. Right. Suppose if we start with the yoke, what is the function of the yoke? So it provides return path to the pole flux. So let me go back to the first diagram to explain why should we require pole flux return path. Suppose the flux that are coming from this pole, and let us assume phi is the flux coming from this pole, and out of which half of the flux will go to this pole to the right hand side, and the remaining half to the left hand side. Suppose if I start with the north pole here, north pole, south pole, north pole, south pole, right? So total flux here starting from this is a phi. Out of this, 5 by 2 will enter into this one to close their magnetic circuit, and this will flow through the yoke part. Like this, circuit will be closed. Similarly on the other side also. So the function of the yoke is to provide return path to the pole flux, and it carries half of the pole flux as I mentioned to you, and it is not subjected to the iron losses as it carries a steady and unidirectional fluxes, right? And the body that is used for material that is used for this one is a cast iron, such that it must be very robust in construction in nature, and it acts as a body or outer frame as I mentioned to you earlier, right? Now coming to the other parts like poles and pole shoes. Poles. So what is the function of the pole here, and what is the material used for this one? So pole, these are the fixed to the inner surface of the yoke and projected radially towards the center. And a minimum number of poles are 4 in case of continuously working generators, and sometimes for starting motors only 2 poles will be enough. So if you want to increase the capacity of the DC generators, we need to based on your requirement, a pair of poles can be increased. Generally there will be 4 poles will be there, and these are laminated or may not be laminated. Poles may not be laminated. If as capacity of the generator increases, requirement is there, then only lamination is required. Otherwise, we can take this is a solid poles, but pole shoes will be made laminated. Then we will discuss about what is pole shoe and what is the material used for this one, what is the function of the pole shoe. So here pole shoe, it is attached to the pole and it is laminated in all type of generators. And these are made with a cast iron or sometimes a grain oriented cold rolled silicon steel laminations will also be used. And coming to the functions of the pole shoe, it projects a pole flux radially and uniformly over the armature conductors. So, in order to have more and more flux linkages with most of the armature conductors, the pole has to be projected. This has done with the pole shoe, and it reduces the reluctance of the magnetic path, and it gives a mechanical support to the field coils, because as the projection of the pole is there, we can easily place the field winding over the poles, so that the pole shoe will give support to that one. It does not come out of the pole here. So that is the major function of the pole shoe. And then it covers 70% of the pole pitch, reduces the leakage flux, and the air gap between the pole shoe and the armature is narrow and uniform. Generally, it will be very less, and like it will be in the range of 0.4 mm to 4 mm width. Now we'll see a field winding. This is also a stationary part, and it is wound on the poles as a concentrated winding. It is made up of pure copper, because this is a winding. It is made with the copper only. Its function is to produce magnetic poles. That is why it is a electromagnetic, as these are electromagnetic poles. And this produces the magnetomotive force here, and it is being excited by DC supply. It produces the flux in each and every pole, and it is highly inductive. As we are mentioning, it is a coil. The resistance will be very less. Probably it will be of inductive in nature. And this winding is also called as a exciting coil. Exciting coil. It converts electrical energy into magnetic energy. That is why these are called electromagnetic poles. And coming to the concept of brushes, what is the function of the brushes we are going to check here. These are used to give the current or take current from a rotating system. Here, as we are discussing about DC generators, in this case, the brushes are collecting current from the commutator. It will be vice versa in the case of DC motors. So, right, they are placed on the stator and make a slipping contact with the rotor through the commutator, as I mentioned you, in DC machines, and through the slip rings in AC machines. So, the concept of slip rings will be used in AC, and in case of DC machines, we will generally call this as a commutator. And slipping contact produces the friction known as a brush friction. These are made up of carbon and its alloys. Probably carbon will be used because of its more good features. The carbon is not a good conducting material. It drops some voltage known as a brush drop, and because the resistance offered by the carbon will be comparatively less. To reduce the contact resistance with the commutator, the brushes are kept under the pressure with adjustable tension springs will be used. That we are going to learn in detail in the brush holders and brushes. Right. So see here, if you observe what is the brush holder and what is the brush here. So these you can very clearly observe. This is brush holder, and spindle hole will be there here, and this is the brush box. Actually, we are going to keep the carbon brush here inside, and these are the springs for adjustment. Tension adjusting handle is there, and flexible copper pick tile will be there. So for the adjustment purpose. And the overall picture you can observe here. These are the two slip rings, and over these the grey color are nothing but your brushes here. And this is a commutator, and these are the brushes. Next. What is the function of the brush rocker and brush holder? Here the brush rockers are mainly used for slight adjustment of the brush, and it is necessary to align the brush axis always with the magnetic neutral axis. And these brush rockers are made with insulating materials such as bakelite and fibers, and it is fitted to the yoke with adjustable mechanism. Right. And coming to the brush holder, the brush holders are fitted to the brush rockers at equal distance. and the function of the brush holder is to hold the sliding brushes. There will be slight adjustment that will be made in the brush position that can be allowable by the brush holder, and they are made of metals. And as we seen earlier, most of the cases carbon will be used as a brush material. So the reasons are self lubricant develops a smooth and polished and frictionless surface is possible with the carbon material, and also it is having a negative temperature coefficient, and the brush resistance helps to obtain the sparkless combination. Here in the carbon, making carbon as a brush, the resistance offered will be somewhat less compared with the other materials. So because of this one, the sparking that will be existing at the commutator will be reduced. That is the main reason carbon will be used as a brush material. And low coefficient of friction will be there. It is softer than the copper, and also it costs less. And now I introduce the term as sparking at the commutator. So the moment when the generator is working and it is the brushes are all continuously collecting current from the brushes, there is a possibility of getting a sparking at the brushes because of all these reasons. So suppose if you overload the generator, which causes sparking. Similarly, loose brush contact. That is why there is a possibility for adjustment of the brush position, so that in order to reduce sparking only. And less is because of the less spring tension and worn out brushes, open armature by accidentally, if a armature coil gets opened, this will also lead to the sparking at the brushes. And if the brushes are not on the MNE, also leads to the sparking. And defective interpole design will lead to the sparking. So these are the different causes for getting sparking at the brushes, which is not at all advisable. So there shouldn't be any sparking at the brushes. Uh, Now. End plates and bearings, these are also comes under the stationary parts of the DC generator. End plates, they hold the bearings and they made up of cast iron. They are fitted at both ends of the body, are nothing but yoke with bolts, so that it will be tightly enclosed completely. And next, bearings, they give support to the shaft with a minimum friction, so there shouldn't be any much friction, and there should be continuous maintenance for the bearings also. So there are different types of bearings like bush bearings, ball bearings, and roller bearings. Depending upon the size, capacity, and speed of the machine, these bearings will be chosen for their application. Next, finally, this terminal box is used. The end terminals of the field and armature windings are made available in the separate closed box, which is known as a terminal box. This we have already seen in the diagram. And now, till now, we discussed about the stationary parts of the DC generator. Now, we are going to discuss about rotating parts of the DC generator. So, first we'll start with the shaft. In the shaft, it provides mechanical support to the all rotating parts here. So what the shaft only, all the rotating parts we are placing, as the shaft is being rotated by the prime mover, all the parts which are placed on the shaft are rotating. So it is made with a high grade steel, so it must be very strong and stubborn. So that is why it is made with a high grade steel. The mechanical energy is being given to the shaft by using a prime mover. So this shaft has to be rotated by some mechanical means. It should be freely rotate on the bearings, and it is connected to the shaft of the prime mover. As I mentioned earlier, it requires a prime mover to get the mechanical energy, and this shaft is connected to the shaft of the prime mover. Next, rotating part is armature. This is very important. Any system which holds the power conductors is known as armature, and it should be in moving nature. The main parts are electrical power is developed in this armature only. So a generator, as I mentioned to you earlier, which converts the mechanical energy into electrical energy. So the conversion is taking place in the armature conductors which are placed on the armature. So this is very important part. So, and DC machines, it is placed on the rotor because of the commutator. Here, as we have seen earlier, the type of the EMF induced in the DC generator is alternating nature, that has been converted into DC by using a commutator. And now we are going to see in detail about what is the armature construction and the details of the armature here. So here the laminations are mentioned here, like very thin sheets of this type of construction will be cut into different slices, like in the form of slices. And if you observe, these are the slots. And this is a keyway for the shaft. The shaft here, these are the air holes, and these are the slots. So on the front view also we can observe here very clearly slots, and these projections are called teeth, armature teeth, and inside we can observe the shaft key, and the holes are made in the each and every lamination. So all these laminations will be together stacked to form the complete armature core. This is another view of the armature. So next, coming to this one, commutator is a mechanical device which converts a AC to DC when it is rotated. A commutator is always placed on the rotor, right? And commutator segments are connected to the armature coil. This point is very important. Commutator segments are connected to the armature coils through the number of connecting leads equal to the number of coils. Now, in the next slide, we are going to learn about the armature winding. So these armature winding or armature coils are connected to the commutator segments. Based on that one, the commutator will collect a voltage that is generated in the armature. And now coming to this armature mainly consisting of two parts. One is the armature core and armature winding. In the earlier we have discussed what we have seen is armature core. Now we are going to discuss about the armature core and armature winding in detail. Right, armature core, and this has two main functions: so support the armature conductors and reduce the reluctance between the pole to pole. And iron is a conducting material. It is subjected to the hysteresis and eddy current losses. Any material which is made with iron will have its own hysteresis loop, which causes hysteresis losses. And it is if it is not made with laminations, it causes eddy current, and in turn causes the eddy current losses. So iron material will have losses, that we need to understand. And coming to the next part, which is nothing but a rotating part, commutator and its functions. Here we can observe on the right hand side a commutator segments commutator diagram here very clearly. Looks like a copper color, and each has been separated by a black color sheet. If you observe, this is called mica. So it is a cylindrical structure made up of copper segments stacked together but insulated from each other by mica. It collects the current from the armature conductors, which converts alternating current into the unidirectional current that we observed in the single loop generator. And this is another view of the commutator. So you can very clearly observe all these are the segments of the commutator which are being separated from each other by a black color. You can observe here that is a mica made with mica. This is another view. Now, what are the properties of the mica sheet? It is having high melting point and high dielectric strength. So, in addition to this one, it can be easily cut into the shape what you require. So, it is used as an insulating medium in between the copper segments. And coming to finally the cooling fan and armature winding. So cooling fan, it is provided on the same shaft, backside of the armature here. And you may get one doubt here: what is the necessity of the cooling fan here? Once if the capacity of the generator is small, then there is no requirement of cooling fan. But as the capacity of the generator increases, it causes the temperature rise of the DC generator. So if you are not taken care of that increase in the temperature, the performance of the DC generator is not to the expected level. So in order to maintain the specified temperature, we must provide some cooling effect. That has been done with the cooling fan, with the help of cooling fan. It pumps air at high speed, and due to the airflow, the arcing component thrown away from the commutator. As we have seen earlier, there is a possibility of sparking at the commutator brushes because of some unexpected failure in the DC machine. But if anything happens like that sparking at the commutator brushes, that even been thrown away with the help of this air, high speed air. Hence, air cooling has a great effect on the performance of the DC mentioned as I mentioned. Right. So coming to the armature winding, this armature winding is a key part where actually the generation of the voltage is done in the DC generator. So power is generated in this armature winding, and according to the requirement of the voltage and current, the conductors are grouped in different manner. Nothing but your size of the DC generator, the armature winding will be wound. The method of placing the conductors in the slots of the armature core is called armature winding. Now, till now we have seen what is the construction of the DC generator, what are the different parts existing on the DC generator, and what is the function of each and every part concerned with the stationary and as well as with the rotatory parts, and what is the materials that are used for the construction of these parts. Now, we must know the technology connected with the armature winding so that we could able to design the armature winding. So I would like to introduce this technology. There will be a geometrical angle, which is also called as a mechanical angle of a circle, nothing but 360 degrees. But there is a difference between electrical degrees and a mechanical degrees. Then what is an electrical degree? Each pole is taken as electrical degrees of 180 degrees electrical. So, and the relation between your electrical degrees and mechanical degrees is given by the formula. Electrical degrees is equal to mechanical degrees into P by 2, where P stands here number of poles. Now, coming to the next one, pole pitch. Pole pitch. It is represented with the Y suffix P, and it is defined as the distance between the centers of adjacent poles measured in terms of number of slats of the armature. As I mentioned you earlier, the armature core is made into different slots. Those slots are called armature slots. So this pole pitch is measured in terms of number of slots, and how between how many number of slots. This is a slots are measured between centers of the adjacent poles in terms of number of slots of the armature. And then YP. YP is given. YP is nothing but pole pitch. It is given by number of slots by number of poles. So number of slots is represented by S and number of poles is P already known to you. So YP equal to S by P here. Now pole. The line which is drawn along the center of the pole and core center, its position is constant, and geometrical neutral axis GNA. GNA means geometrical neutral axis and MNA is magnetic neutral axis. And conductor, it is a single straight copper wire whose length is equal to the pole length and axis is perpendicular to the pole flux. I clearly mentioned you in the singleton diagram what is the length of the conductor, which is called as a conductor. A turn will have two conductors. And the slots are distributed on the periphery of the armature core, and each slot occupies a certain electrical angle known as a slot angle beta. The slot angle is also new term, and which is represented with beta. It's given by pole angle by number of slots per pole. Pole angle is it's known to be 180 degrees by S by P. S stands here number of slots and P is for number of poles. So it can be simplified as 180 into P by S. It is mentioned in electrical degrees. Next, we should know particulars of a coil so that based on this only you can understand the other terminology of winding, armature winding. So here, if you consider this is the north pole, this is the south pole. In between north and south pole, we are placing one turn here, right? So here, what is the length? The moment if I say the length of the conductor, this is the actual length of the conductor is from the size of the pole here. Completely effective length of the conductor we call this is Z1 from starting of the pole to the ending of the pole. So this together it is called the effective length of the conductor, that is Z1. So here there is a V connection, here this is a connected to the commutator. These are called end connections. This V shaped is called back end connection, and this is called a front end connection for which it is connected to the from which it is connected to the commutator here. And this is called pole length. Now The way in which the winding is done differs in its shape. They are classified into two categories. One is a lap wound, second one is a wave wound. First, we'll start with the lap wound, which is called lap wound. Here, suppose if we start with the conductor one, it will have a back end connection and connected to the another conductor, and again it will come back to the this position, and again it will be overlapping one over the other. You simply observe the cursor movement here. So again I am showing starting from this connected to the end connections, connected to the another conductor, coming back connected to the commutator segment here, and again it is overlapped here, again it is continuing like this. This type of connection is called lap connection or lap wound. The other one wave wound. Here if you observe, the conductors look like a wave shape. Just start from this one, moving the direction of as I shown you the cursor direction. So like here. So it is a progressively increasing. Right. And in this diagram, we can clearly observe commutator segments and as well as B1 and B2 are the brushes. Next, full pitched and short pitched coils. So this terminology is required when we are comparing between lap wound and wave wound. Here, this is the North Pole and South Pole. If a coil, suppose if you observe here, bunch of conductors are there in this slot which comes under the North Pole. Similarly, the other side on the South Pole. So all these conductors are a bunch of conductors here. Here also a bunch of conductors. If you observe, these are called coil sides or conductors also we can call. So here all these coil conductors coil sides are placed in this under the influence of North. And here also, if this from one pole to the another pole, completely from North Pole to South Pole, this is called full pitched coil. The other side, if it is not to this extent of the next pole, before that itself it has completed its turn, then it is called short pitched coil. And here alpha indicates short pitched angle, how much angle it has been short pitched by, mentions by alpha. And next another terminology is simple layer and double layer. Single layer or some simple or single one the same. Here if you observe, as I mentioned, the projected one is a pole armature core teeth, and the conductor inside is these are the conductors. So here if you observe, these are the one coil side. This is one coil side, this is one coil side. Simple layer. And coming to the, if two coil sides are placed in one slot, it is called double layer. Simple layer, double layer. And a single turn coil, it is a coil of one turn, and a turn consisting of two conductors, or we can call two sides, nothing but Z1 and Z2. So Z1 and Z2 are two conductors which are making one turn. So multi-turn means it contains number of loops in series. Here I would like to mention you where N stands for number of turns and Z equal to 2 into N here. These are total number of conductors. And the next term is a coil pitch, which is represented with the Y suffix C. It is the distance between two sides of the same coil. And as I shown you in the simplex and double diagram, and earlier this one full pitched coil and short pitched coil. So full pitched coil, if the coil pitch Yc equal to the pole pitch Yp, it is called a full pitched coil, and it gives more voltage and also produces harmonics. One advantage it is having that it gives more voltage, no doubt, because of its nature full pitched, but there is a possibility of harmonics. Coming to the short pitched coil, when the coil pitch is less than the pole pitch, it is called the short pitched coil, as I shown you earlier in the diagram. It gives less voltage but no harmonics. So in order to reduce the harmonics, generally if voltage is less also no problem for the particular application, then we will generally go with the short pitched only. And then concentrated winding. If all the conductors of one coil side are placed in one slot, it is called concentrated winding. And because of this concentrated winding, it gives more voltage. And there is another terminology related with this one is a distributed winding. If all the conductors in one coil side are distributed in different slots, it is called distributed winding. right? And it gives less voltage but improves the waveform and reduces the harmonics. So because of its own advantages and disadvantages, whether we have to choose a full pitched coil or short pitched coil, or concentrated winding or distributed winding, or single layer winding or double layer winding, all these will depending upon your voltage requirement and as well as the current requirement. And now I would like to explain you the comparison between lap wound and wave wound. As I shown you earlier, the same diagram, lap wound and wave wound. Now it is very clearly understand to you. I think that how the lap winding will be there and how the wave winding will be there. Now we are going to compare between these two windings. So here Y suffix R is a resultant pitch, it's a back pitch minus front pitch. Here it is a summation of those two. So wave winding is a increasing order. So it is a resultant which is nothing but it is a addition here. And coming to this one, average pitch can be calculated YB plus YF by 2 here, and this is YB plus YF by 2, same case here, and this is Z by P here. Z is the total number of conductors, P is the number of poles. And the commutator pitch is given by plus or minus 1, here also plus or minus 1. There is no difference between lap wound and wave wound. Here the back pitch and front pitch must be odd but not equal here in the case of lap wound, and must be odd, may or may not be equal here in the case of wave wound. And lap wounding is used for more current and low voltage applications, and in the case of wave wound it is used for more voltage and low current applications. So as I mentioned to you, depending upon your requirement, more current or low voltage or more voltage and low current, the winding will be chosen. Next, lap wound, the number of parallel paths will be A equal to P, where A stands for number of parallel paths and P stands for number of poles. And number of parallel paths in case of wave wound is always A equal to 2. And power produced is same in the case of lap wound, and it is same in the case of wave wound. In the case of lap wound, by the construction itself, these coils are overlap on each other, and which is not the case in the case of wave wound. And the designing of lap wound is very simple, but wave wounding is complex. Dummy coils are not required in the case of lap wound, but dummy coils are required for the mechanical balance in the case of wave wound. Equalizer rings are needed here in the case of lap wound, which is not needed in the case of wave wound. And some more comparisons are, it requires brushes equal to the number of poles in the case of lap wound. But in the case of wave wound, it requires only two sets of brushes that are required. And winding makes one round around in the case of lap wound, but wave wound it makes the number of rounds equal to the coil sides of poles here. And coming to the lap wound, all conductors in any parallel path lie under one pair of poles here. In case of wave wound, all conductors in any parallel path lie under all poles, because the number of rounds that is taking place in case of wave wound. And in the lap wound, the voltage of all parallel paths are not exactly equal, or may not equal here. The voltage of two parallel paths are equal here. Now, till now we have discussed completely the DC generator construction, different parts of the DC generator, and what are the material used for the DC generator, and the principle of operation of a DC generator. And then we discussed about in detail how armature windings will be done, like types of armature windings, lap winding and wave winding, and comparison between these two we have seen. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you.